Tainan Dalpra has a submission rate of 74%, and of those submissions, around 50% come from the back. But what interests me most isn't just how often he finishes from there, it's how early the danger begins. Because in many of these sequences, without the back even secured, Tainan is already attacking, and ironically, that aggression becomes part of the control. Personally, I've always thought about attacking the back through a control-first lens. Secure the seatbelt, establish the hooks, stabilize a position, then start building toward the lapel grips to work into the cross-collar choke. I mean, this is the structure which even Tainan himself teaches in his backtake instructional over on AOJ On Demand. But when I studied Tainan's sequences, that order kept getting challenged. There were so many moments where the back wasn't even close to being fully secured yet. Sometimes he had one hook, or none at all, and sometimes the opponent was still in motion as they looked to defend. But Tainan was already setting up the choke, and at first that almost feels like he's skipping steps. But the more I watched, the more I started to realize that his aggression is part of the control. And this is really the idea behind his back funnel. By attacking early, Tainan begins influencing his opponent's reactions while gradually narrowing their options toward his preferred outcome. So throughout this study, we'll look at how Tainan creates back exposure, attacks the choke early, and uses the reactions that threat creates to build control all the way through to the submission. For this video, I studied more than 20 of Tainan's recent matches. Not every sequence made it into the final edit, but all of them helped me identify and confirm the patterns you're about to see. I'm excited to announce all of that research is now available inside the Deep Dive library. You can search nearly 250 competition sequences covering more than 200 techniques and concepts with timestamp footage and my notes. Shared techniques and concepts connect studies, showing how the same ideas work across different systems. You can save what interests you, add your own notes, and track your progress as the library grows. The first 200 founding members can lock in $12 a month for life before it increases to $16. The link will be in the description and comment section. So to understand Tainan's back funnel, we first have to look at how these back exposure moments are being created. For Tainan, these moments often come from the pace and pressure he applies through his chain passing. Once Tainan clears his opponent's frames, they're presented with a difficult choice: accept the pass and allow him to settle, or expose the back in hopes of not only delaying the pass, but to preserve an opportunity to recover guard and avoid conceding points. Against Tainan though, that reaction often leads them directly into his back funnel. Now, back exposure doesn't always come in one clean form. Sometimes the opponent is turtling, standing, rolling, or scrambling, and Tainan only has a brief window to capitalize. Other times, the exposure comes from a more stable position, like side control or mount. But regardless of how the back is exposed, Tainan's goal is often the same: follow the opponent's rotation and capitalize off that moment of exposure. That might mean spinning around the turtle with movements like the topspin, or jumping around the hips and following a roll. And despite how different these entries can look, one of the clearest themes across them is how quickly Tainan looks to establish a collar connection before the opponent can recover. That connection can begin with either hand used for the choke. So before we go any further, I want to quickly clarify the grip terminology I'll be using. The first term is the top hand or arm, which I'll also refer to as the choking hand. It's the arm that reaches across the neck and creates the main choking pressure. Then there's the bottom hand, which secures the other collar underneath and helps to increase that pressure. Depending on how the opponent exposes their back, Tainan may establish either one of these grips first. So in my studies on the guard passing of Lucas Lepri and Guy Mendez, one concept I covered that feels especially relevant here is the idea of an anchor point. Essentially, both of them often used a lapel grip that serves multiple purposes throughout their passing systems. With Lucas, for example, that grip can help him deal with lasso guard, De La Riva, and knee shields. But what makes it interesting is that he's not constantly changing that grip. He's maintaining the same connection and just repurposing it depending on the defense he's dealing with. And that idea can even carry beyond the pass itself. Once Lucas gets past the guard, he can maintain that same lapel grip, only now it helps him stabilize the opponent's hips and limit their ability to escape. Through my study of Tainan Dalpra, I've realized this concept can go even further, because now the grip is not just being carried through the early stages of the pass, or even into the stabilization phase. In some of Tainan's sequences, the same grip is carried all the way into the submission, not having let go a single time. These are what I like to refer to as carryover grips. For example, here against Jose Steve, Tainan secures the collar grip to form a strong upper body connection while working a Nika pass. After transitioning to the arm weave pass and circling around the guard of Jose, Tainan closes the distance, forcing Jose to attempt to turn into him with the goal of rebuilding his frames in order to recover. However, notice how Tainan now pulls up on the collar to act as a crossface as he drives his weight across to stabilize a position. With Jose still fighting to build base and square up, Tainan answers beautifully, jumping around the hips to pursue the submission with the collar grip now acting as the top arm of the cross collar choke. Same grip throughout, just with a different purpose at each and every stage. This collar grip carries over well into the choke as the top arm, when Tainan's met with the response of an opponent who prioritizes turning into him. But what about when an opponent who, for reasons of either preference or lack of options, decides to turn away? Well, in this sequence, we can see Tainan immediately seek the far collar grip to form a strong upper body connection from the smash pass position. After a windshield wiper by Tainan to completely get past the guard, his opponent Pedro is forced to turn away. Notice how Tainan's grip now becomes the bottom hand of the choke thread. So regardless of which direction his opponent turns, Tainan can carry over that anchor point into the back take. Carryover grips are just one way Tainan creates that early collar connection. In other sequences, he wins the grips immediately after the pass or during the transition, like we see here mid-scramble. So whether they're carried over from the passing exchange or established during the scramble, the collar grips often become Tainan's first upper body connection. One of the biggest benefits comes down to timing. If Tainan waits until the back is fully secured, the opponent can focus almost entirely on hand fighting and protecting the neck, making those grips much more difficult to establish. By winning them during the transition, he can move into the next stage of the funnel before the opponent's defense is fully organized. Once Tainan establishes that collar connection, especially the choking hand grip, it immediately begins influencing the battle for the hooks. See, normally, without an immediate choke threat, the opponent can divide their defense more comfortably, using one hand to monitor the upper body control and protect the neck, while the other blocks or peels the hooks so they can begin escaping. But after Tainan secures a collar grip, the danger around the neck demands more attention, pulling both hands higher and creating a dilemma. Every second the opponent spends defending the threat gives Tainan more room to establish his hooks, and every second they spend fighting the hooks gives him the opportunity to improve his grips. So the collar grip is already doing two jobs at once, developing the choke while creating the opening Tainan needs to secure control. This sequence from this past IBJJF Worlds Finals is a perfect example of this dilemma. After his opponent Natan gives up back exposure to avoid the pass, we can see Natan immediately defend by balling up and blocking the hook entry. With no hooks, Tainan is still already setting up the choke, having the bottom hand collar grip established while on the hunt for the second collar grip. Aware of the immediate danger, Natan brings both hands up to defend, but with the hooks beginning to close in, Natan decides to prioritize his defenses below, lowering both hands to the legs in an attempt to free his hips. In that exact moment, we can see Tainan's top hand, which is now completely free, shoot across the neck. Natan abandons one grip to address the choke, giving Tainan the opportunity to insert that hook. And soon, as both hands are pulled to the neck, Tainan is now free to insert his second hook. So after Tainan has used this dilemma to establish some form of back control, whether that's one hook or both, the next question is how he maintains that control and continues progressing towards the finish. And to understand that, we need to look more closely at the role the collar grips play through the upper body connection, and how it works together with chest to back pressure and hip control. To better understand this, it helps to compare the collar grips to the control most commonly associated with maintaining the back, which is the traditional seatbelt. In both cases, the upper body connection allows Tainan to use his feet and legs to manage the hips. He can hook behind the thigh to create a wedge, use his knees to block the hips, or post his foot on either the mat or his opponent's hip. These are general tools that can show up throughout the back control exchange. They share the same foundation, but the collar grips create two important differences that I want to focus on. The first is that they keep the opponent more honest, meaning because of the more immediate threat, they have to be much more careful of how they look to escape. Rotating at the wrong moment or in the wrong direction can actually improve Tainan's choking angle, meaning the alignment between his choking arm and the opponent's upper body. For example, if Tainan has both hooks in and the opponent peels off the hook on the same side as his top arm, then moves their hips in that direction, they're basically gifting him the choking angle he needs for the finish. For that reason, the opponent will usually look to peel off the opposite hook and move their hips in that direction, away from the top arm. The second difference is the freedom the collar grip connection gives Tainan to adjust how he maintains the back. One way this shows up is during certain stages of the opponent's common circle away response. Here, the top hand collar grip can temporarily maintain the upper body connection on its own. This lets Tainan keep the bottom hand available, either delaying or releasing that second grip so he can use it to control the hips, while the top hand maintains the attachment and choke threat. We can see this against Matheus Pereira, where Tainan's choking grip keeps his upper body attached. This allows Tainan to use his bottom hand as a frame against the hips, blocking Matheus from sliding far enough away to weaken the choke. Since the collar grips are preserved through the gi, Tainan has the freedom to more easily adjust his chest to back pressure and reposition his hips depending on the stage of the sequence. He can close that space to tighten the position or stop the rotation, then create space to reposition his hips while staying connected. We can see the value of that freedom more clearly against Jose Steve. As Tainan carries over the choking grip and follows the rotation, Jose attempts to circle away. Tainan is able to keep Jose's upper body connected and closes the chest to back space through the top hand collar grip as he pulls Jose across. He then pivots off his foot to reposition his hips underneath, briefly uses his free hand to frame against the hips, then shoots it across to shrimp out and recover the choking angle. Together, these differences create a relationship where the choke narrows the opponent's safe escape routes, making their movement more predictable, while the collar connection gives Tainan more freedom to follow and control that movement. Once Tainan has stabilized the back and recovered a strong choking angle to continue toward the cross collar choke finish, we often see him bring his leg that's on the same side as his top arm over the opponent's shoulder line. Although he can finish without it, reaching this position usually signals the endgame. Through trapping the shoulder line, Tainan can increase the pressure by pushing both his legs away as he pulls the neck toward him. It also helps to combat any hand fighting the opponent might look to do to escape. Now, before we get into how Tainan reacts when his funnel is challenged, a quick word from this video's sponsor, Substats. Substats doesn't just analyze BJJ data, they also create custom athlete cards. Now everyone ranging from the hobbyist to the full-time competitor can get the recognition they deserve. It's a unique gift for yourself, a friend, or teammate. I got one for my friend and he couldn't have been happier. Check out the link below. So we've learned how the funnel develops when everything connects, but just as important is understanding where opponents are able to break that progression. While looking for examples, I was able to find 3 main points: before the collar grips were established, after the choke had begun, and through prolonged prevention. We can see the earliest failure point against Lazarus Hermes. After forcing back exposure, Tainan top spins to begin chasing the back. Before he can establish his collar grips, Lazarus scramble rolls, prioritizing fighting the hooks, and circles his hips toward the mat to clear the position. When Lazarus uses the same defense again, Tainan begins anticipating the roll and redirecting into the leg drag. And with Lazarus becoming so preoccupied with fighting the hooks, Tainan eventually uses that reaction to whip his leg over and transition into the armbar. Lazarus shuts down the original back funnel, but his defense creates another submission route. Against Gabriel Machado, the funnel breaks at a later stage. With the choking threat already established, Gabriel traps Tainan's leg, shifts his hips away, and pulls down on the top arm. This prevents Tainan from recovering the proper finishing angle, so he uses the remaining upper body connection to transition into Kimura control and finish with the armbar. Pedro Maia shows how the funnel can be disrupted through repeated prevention. For nearly 6.5 minutes, Pedro blocks the top hand from securing the collar grip, while repeatedly turning belly down to build his base. Each time Pedro begins coming up, Tainan has to post on the mat or switch to double unders to avoid being shucked off the back. These reactions work like a reset button, repeatedly forcing Tainan to address the position before he can finish developing the choke. These examples show 3 different failure points: denying the collar grips early, winning the hip angle after the choke begins, and repeatedly resetting the position before the funnel can reach its endpoint. Ultimately, Tainan's early choke threat shapes the entire funnel, opening the hooks, limiting escape, and helping him maintain control into the finish. And when that route breaks, he's quick to redirect into another attack. If you want to explore the full research and sequences behind this study, don't forget to check out the deep dive library. The first 200 members can lock in the grandfather rate of $12 a month before it increases to $16. You can also check out my Patreon for exclusive behind the scenes content and study notes. All the links will be in the comment section and video description. And as always, a huge thank you to everyone supporting the channel on Patreon. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.